Hey everybody. With this video, I wanted to tackle the classic rent versus buy, but a little bit of a pivot of addressing how the market has shifted here in Austin, and that is we've all seen it due to the demand finally, well, the supply finally outpacing the demand. Rent has come down a little bit, so a tenant might look at you and say, "Well, why should I buy if my rent has actually gone down? Like, I don't see the point in that." I'll just stay here because it's good. It's good now, and I just want to point out like buying still is the preferable thing if it's something that you can do financially and it makes sense. So with Eddie Gamez here, I just wanted you to hear straight from the source and not just take my word for it, but listen to the guy who has crunched quite a few numbers and how to go through a lot of applications, especially with renters. So when people look at you and they talk about the rent versus buy, especially with how Austin itself has shifted. Uh, I guess like what are your thoughts whenever someone presents that to you of like I would rather rent, especially because they've gone down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's the answer that everybody gives, right? You're building wealth, you're building equity,
Hmm.
yada, yada. We all know that one. I mean, I think we all know that one. You own a house, it gains value over time. You own it, you're saving, that sort of thing. But, there's more reasons than that. You think about rent prices are down right now. That's not going to be forever. Um, there was a time, maybe, I don't know how many years ago, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, when I was looking at buying a house. And I found a place on the east side of Austin, and I crunched the numbers with a buddy of mine who was a realtor, and it would have cost $2,400 a month for my mortgage to buy this house, putting like 5% down or something like that. My rent at the time was like 1,700, and I told him that's crazy. Why would I pay more to own a house over here that's kind of not as nice and not as a great a location as my apartment when I'm paying $1,600 a month and I'm not responsible for anything and I get to live here and all those other reasons, basically to save money. And so I didn't buy the house. Fast forward to maybe 3 years later, maybe less. I was paying $2,400 a month. What happened? My lifestyle evolved a little bit. Rent prices went up. And then think about just a couple of years later when housing prices in Austin went through the roof, so did rents. Not only did rent prices go up, but you couldn't even rent a lot of places. People were taking deposits or application fees for people that wanted to rent a house and not even running their applications. They were just charging people for fees on the hope that they might check their application and they might get approved to move into a house on a rental basis. These things happen and they're going to happen again. Right
Hmm.
now, housing prices are low, rent prices are low. It's not always going to be like that. But what is an opportunity is that housing prices are low. And once they go back up, you can either wait till rent goes back up and you can buy a house then when housing prices are back up, or you can start looking around now, see if you're qualified, see if there's a good investment, and you can stick with your mortgage payment that you get into now when everybody else is paying a higher rent and looking for a higher priced house, so they're going to have to pay a higher mortgage for what could be 3 years, 4 years down the road.
Yeah. Um, as one of those things that kind of does sneak up on you because let's not forget in Texas, as far as I know, there is no rent control, and obviously that's been smacked down anytime it's been brought up because that rent control opens up a whole other can of worms. Not going to discuss that here, but due to that, to your point, good rent this year might not be the same next year. And there's a lot of apartments I know that are still kind of reeling from a lot of decisions that were made during the pandemic about who you could or could not evict and all of that. So
Mhm.
there are a lot of apartment complexes that are very deep in debt. And well, there's only one way to get that money back.
Well, and they would love to charge you more. They're going to
Hmm.
charge you as much as they possibly can year after year. So, everybody, I mean, I moved several times and gave up on going on the approach to moving several times because my rent would go up every single year. It
Hmm.
never went down. And so now you're moving out to a new place every year. You don't repaint any of it because you're probably going to move the year after that.
Right.
That or you're just going to keep on dealing with your rent going up a pretty significant way in most cases.
Yeah.
And you buy a house, okay, so you've got everything on the financial side, building wealth and so on. You've got some consistency. Property taxes change, sometimes HOAs can change, but it's pretty minimal and it's gradual. Um, and now you have full control over your environment.
Hmm.
It takes a little bit of getting used to, but you want to paint a wall, you can. You want to knock down a wall, you can. You can make yours, and you can make it the way that you want it to be.
That's actually a good point because I mean I've helped a few renters before as well, and man, I had one client who they needed to rent a home, and just because financially they couldn't, home buying did not make sense yet, but they had two large pit bulls.
Hmm.
So immediately, one, because there's two dogs, most rentals said no,
Hmm.
and because they were pit bulls, they said they doubled down and said in no way, and
Yeah.
we're gonna. And so we eventually did find one. Like they were able to find one that they were okay with that.
Hmm.
But it's like if you have dogs, especially large dogs or certain breeds, or maybe if you do have exotic pets is anything that's not a cat or dog. So birds, whatever it may be. Whereas with a house, to your point, you can have whatever you want. Even the most strict, tyrannical HOAs don't control what you can do inside your house. They might control what you can do outside if they're really, tyrannical, and that's a whole nother discussion. But when it comes to what you do inside, to your point, like paint walls, pets, things of that nature, like that's complete freedom for you. In fact, I know a guy we helped out actually at the beginning of this year. He's actually reached out to me multiple times, like about the how he had to get used to the freedom he now has. Because he was thinking to himself, he's like, well, I could like do a little bit of rewiring so that way he can, because he was like designating rooms for what he wants to use them for. And it's like, there's nobody to tell me no. I don't have to like get it approved by somebody. And it kind of like freaked him out. And then he's like, well, this is great. I'm like, that's what home ownership is.
Yeah. You know, first few times I drilled holes into my walls, I thought I was going to get in trouble. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's your deal. It's all you,
So,
and yeah.
yeah. So if you have, obviously, if you're on the receiving end of rents going down, that's good. But as they always say, as the saying goes, what goes up must come down. Of course, the reverse is also true. Nothing trends down forever, nothing trends up forever. So, if this is my way of just letting you know, like, if you can get off that rent, like hamster wheel, I highly encourage it because the sooner you can, the better. And I know you're going to hear a lot of people because, gosh, there's so many back and forth conversations about, well, if you do this or do that. At the end of the day, buying does, if it is financially viable, you go for it because as we pointed out here, just so many benefits you get from it. So yeah, that's my way of just encouraging you. Please just at least give it a chance, fill out an application, see what you qualify for. Because as I've had many clients that I've found out, they qualify for more than they realize. And so yeah, I hope this has been very insightful as you navigate everybody giving their opinions on rent versus buying. But yeah, thank you so much, and I'll see y'all in the next one.